Yeah, this is fun. Woo!
Were you planning on shuttling Dirt Surfer or Sink Line before stopping for beer in Hood River? Well then, since you've already got the shuttle rigs ready to go, you should definitely tack on a shuttle to the top of Nestor Peak. I wouldn't recommend this as a singular destination ride. You definitely need this to be part of some larger plan. After the relatively long shuttle, you'll get 2,500 feet of descent with 281 feet of climbing out of a 6.6 mile trail that's so steep it feels like falling straight off the top of the mountain. Nestor Peak is a rare thing, a super steep trail that's mostly sustainable and isn't full of slippery gravel or sloughing off the side of the hill. But before we can ride it, we've got to get to it. For the lower parking area, you're looking for Northwestern Lake Park, which you get to by heading north on Highway 141 from Highway 14. After a mile or so, you'll come to this weird intersection where you'll want to turn left and proceed another mile or so before you reach Northwestern Lake Road. Turn left and you'll eventually cross a bridge over the White Salmon River and you'll see the park on the left. You want to start your shuttle expedition from here because there is limited parking at the actual exit to the trail. Now, what you're looking for is technically the Buck Creek Trail. I'll include coordinates for the top of the trail in the video description in case it's likely to do you any good. The roads from the park up to the top of the trail are kind of a spaghetti bowl of gravel. Crucially, you'll want to have a high clearance vehicle for these roads. They do get a little bit rough. From Northwestern Park, turn left on Northwestern Lake Road and proceed less than a half mile to the turnoff for Nestor Peak Road. This is where the complexity starts. You'll fall asleep halfway through this video if I try to describe every single turn. Fortunately, there are details that will keep you on track. The first is that there are all these little signs pointing the way to Willard.
Willard, go towards Willard.
Follow those little signs. The other is that you want to keep going up the hill. When in doubt, go up. Now, eventually, you'll get to this last Willard sign that also has a sign pointing up to the lookout.
No, we go to Lookout.
We're going to go to Lookout, not Willard any longer.
Right. Okay, so the last Willard, don't go to Willard.
Go to Lookout.
Now you no longer want to keep driving toward Willard. Instead, you want to take the right to the Lookout. It'll lead you up a pretty rough section of road to the top of the hill where there's this old lookout station that's in surprisingly good shape for being obviously abandoned for a while. Anyway, enjoy the view up here. Ride down the road from the lookout and find the trailhead at the hairpin in the road. You can also park your car here if you don't feel comfortable navigating the baby heads up to the top. You're literally just driving to the top for the view, but you should drive or hike to the top. It is gorgeous up there. From here, the trail starts out pretty steep, rushing down the hill for about a half mile before you end up at this little 250-foot climb that sort of gives you a nice interlude to warm up for the rest of the ride down. Don't worry about this little climb. It's all downhill after this. Right after this little climberlude, you'll sort of follow the top of the ridge line for a moment before the trail drops into a side cut on Rider's Right, sort of flirting with the top of the ridge line for about a mile as it rounds an elbow-shaped steep ridge before finding some shallower contours and proceeding straight down the fall line for about a quarter mile before crossing this old stub of a road and following switchbacks down one of the steepest sections of trail before it finds this road, which you'll ride for a mile that feels kind of lengthy. It's a weird little road interlude until you get to a horse camp that I've never seen any horses in, or particularly very many campers. You'll find the continuation of the trail next to this signboard. It's a pretty steep straight shot down the road from here. Some of the most treacherous and eroded sections of the trail are in this section, so do be careful. The side cut is starting to erode in this section and is getting constant attention from trail gnomes, so don't count on it being the same as the last time you rode it. Just be careful because it's subject to change. From there, it's just a coast down the road back to the Northwestern Lake Park. The straight up description of this trail doesn't really do it justice because simply stating the facts on Nestor Peak makes it sound boring and hardly worth it, but it's a worthwhile addition to your day. Like I said, I just wouldn't do it as my sole destination unless I lived in the area. You definitely won't regret this ride though. You'll feel like it was time well spent, especially if it's just a little reward at the end of your day or a warm up to begin it. I would never pedal up this trail. I think it's just too steep in most places to be at all pleasant for that activity. You'd be pushing the bike a lot and constantly watching for people coming down. You could climb the road, but to me it would feel like a lot of climbing for a really fast descent that's just over too soon considering how long it would take to climb that 2,500 feet. I would suggest sticking with Post Canyon if you're planning on doing some pedaling. That's the thing, there's better rides for pedaling than this one is. So this trail exists in a sort of strange marginal category of not being quite sufficient by itself, but definitely worth your time simply because of its proximity to other awesome trails and fantastic trail systems. You know, you could even shuttle this one on the way up to shuttle Cold Springs from South Climb Trailhead. You know, give that trail some love. Just a suggestion. You don't have to do what I tell you.